Thank you for the nice introduction. This presentation is a little different to the ones we already heard because it doesn't go very deep in the software. It's more like a management method, how to monitor a project status in locally distributed projects and teams. So in nowadays product generation development, the number of locally distributed teams is rising because of different reasons. The main term I could put here would be globalization, and yeah, it comes with the different market aspects all over the world, all over the globe, and this leads to teams that work together, distributed all over the world. And there are hard challenges how to manage those teams because the usual methods that you can do with a local team don't work here, or they are not sufficient. The challenges are that with locally distributed teams, the amount of stakeholders is increasing, and the status we have or the information we have is not locally focused. And furthermore, we have no information about the effectiveness in the team. As we see here, we have different stakeholders globally distributed, and yeah, the main reason is to sense local market trends and to benefit from the local knowledge the people have. The research and development gets more and more decentralized. We got distributed expertise. All the operations are asynchronous. Of course, we have different time zones, and to deal with that, we need new digital tools. In the traditional perspective, we can track the process and compare the current status with different key performance indicators. And so we have an overview over the process. And in distributed teams, there's a lack of face-to-face communication, so it's very hard for the manager or the boss, for example, to get that data to control the process. So what we did we are doing research with locally distributed teams and develop a method that gives us the opportunity to measure the success of projects and to identify if there's a deviation between the status and the planned project, and by doing that we can identify best practices, how to deal in those situations, and use it in further projects. How did we do it? We are doing the research in a so-called live lab. So I want to explain to you what we mean by this. So in reality, you can do a field study, for example, with project partner, with an industrial partner, and you have very real natural conditions. And on the opposite of that, there's a laboratory study where you can test the hypothesis, for example, very precisely because you have controlled boundary conditions. So this is kind of the both sides of the studies we have, and in the live lab we try to, or we can adopt the benefits of both of these methods, because a live lab here is a real product development project done by a controlled group. So in our case, it's a product development project with students together with a project partner, and of course for the students we can set the boundary conditions how we want it to do research on methods. This live lab is called ProWheel. Like I just said, it's in combination with every year in combination with a different partner from industry. Last year it was Central Research Fiat, and it's conducted by 48 students of the KIT, who are most times mechanical engineers, and they are the development engineers in this project. And then we have 16 other students by the Hochschule Karlsruhe. Its closest translation is maybe high school, but it's a little different, the system. And they are so-called innovation coaches, so they moderate workshops, and they teach the other development students methods, for example. And in total, there are 81 project participants. In addition to the students, of course, the managers of the project and the research, the industrial partner, and for example also SAP, who are providing us a platform for the students to work in distributed teams, so to exchange their files, for example. How does Profil look like? I'll make that short. It's a development project that goes about one semester, and they do first an analysis to understand the task, to get familiar with the project. Then they will do a lot of research, talking with customers or with the project partners and so on. And based on the task they get, then they'll make conceptions of different solutions for the task they have, and finally they'll do a specification and maybe even do first prototypes in this project. So we have the main objective here is to set up a project monitoring methodology to track the project status in that live lab. And the students, they are working locally distributed together. So we have different research questions. First one is the most important, which information do we actually need to track the process, and which stakeholders are there, and which certain information do they need, because they have different interests or different roles in the project. Then we set up a regular survey in this project to track the status with the students and to get a suitable database. And in the end, it's interesting how we can set up a kind of project cockpit, so the different stakeholders can access the information very easily. To the methodology, first of all, we conducted workshops with the different stakeholders. I'll get to the stakeholders later. And then we evaluated the different requirements of them. After that, there's a weekly project survey conducted with questions that are, some of them are asked every week, and some of them are asked in another turnus or singularly. And then we evaluated that survey, and then it's of course very important to supply the information in a feasible way in kind of a project cockpit, which will be evaluated in this year's ProWheel, which just started last week, I guess. Let's get to the stakeholder map. First, we have a core team, that's a project management at our institute, and of course the project partner and the students who are working in this project. So the project management is in continuous communication with the students and the project partner, Then we have the innovation coaches who kind of take part in workshops and supervise the development students. Then we have the chiefs at the institute, the professor, the chief engineers, and other project employees. And additionally, the software supplier SAP and researchers of our institute who are conducting research in this live lab on their methodologies, for example. So this shows what kind of information the different stakeholders want. I'll just point out the main requirements. It's first of all, it's about processing the task. Then it's about the collaboration in the distributed teams, how to improve the project or different methods, and then we have week-specific questions. So in the end, we'll have kind of a matrix where we have the different questions, and we can see the different stakeholders, and we have remarked which stakeholder needs which information. And we have further information about the type of the question, for example, if it's a quantitative question or a qualitative, or how frequently we will ask the questions. So the design of the project survey, first of all, we have the personal data. This is anonymized, but we give them abbreviations, so it's possible to track the answers of one single person or one single group, but we don't know which one it was. Then the questions about processing the task is, for example, if they understand the target, are there any uncertainties, do they have some problems with the task, and very important, how much time they need to process it. The collaboration, it's more about the teamwork, so we want to find out the motivation of the student, how effective they work together, if they have fun, how's the mood in the teams. And week-specific questions are, for example, about the evaluation of new components in the project or different methods, for example, they used in workshops. About the participation, the survey is conducted every week, so they have time, I think, from Friday to Sunday to conduct the survey. And in the mean, 27 students, which is 56%, took part in the surveys. Of course, the information you can give to the different stakeholders is only good if you have a high number of students or people in the project team who take part in such a survey. So we tried different things to increase the participation. For example, made a new layout from the weekly survey, and over 80% rated it as very attractive or attractive. Then we asked questions about the format, and for example also how much time they need, because the people do it, let's say, in their free time, so or in their project time, whatever. So it's time missing them for other things, so it has to be quite short. And as we can see, we could still improve the time they need in their survey. So how is the project, the survey designed? We have the survey is created in the Google Docs, and all the answers are linked there. So it's very easy online directly to make diagrams out of the different answers. You only have to set it up once at the first time, and if you get new data, the diagrams will automatically adapt. And finally, we set up a homepage with Google Pages where the different stakeholders can easily access this information out of the project surveys. We can see that here on the top the different stakeholders can select their role, and of course it's the access is restricted to that group only, because some answers, for example, the students shouldn't know some answers about the motivation of their team colleagues, because it could influence their project or their work in a negative way. Then we see kind of orientation where we are, and we can select in which project we are to compare the information, for example. And here we have stakeholder specifically the most important KPIs, the most important information that different stakeholders want to see. So this is the outlook of the cockpit. So coming to the end, the information requirements of different stakeholders is very different, because the project manager needs other information than the industrial project partner or the professor, for example. So by conducting the workshops, we could, out of this heterogeneous requirements, we could filter out which information we need to collect and give it to whom. Then this kind of weekly survey can be used systematically to get information about the project status, and it helps us very much to do research on the different development methods they use in their project. Furthermore, of course, it's also the target to transfer it not only to our ProWheel Life Lab, but also to other projects, maybe even with usual industrial projects. There, the methodology behind it can be adopted very easily, but of course, the stakeholder requirements, for example, have to be analyzed individually for each project. So in an outlook, this year we implement that cockpit in ProWheel, that we can validate them, and based on that we want to develop intervention strategies or escalation strategies. For example, how to deal with the information if the mood in the teams is bad, what can we do then? And then we want to roll out this format in other projects.
5 minutes.
Yeah. And I'm finished. Thank you very much.